In the last episode, Twin Pine Valley took a major step forward. We built a high-density public housing district and thousands of new residents moved into the valley, even without jobs. Right now, the city relies almost entirely on mining and very little industry beyond that. But the city has the infrastructure, it has the connections, and now it finally has the workforce. In this episode, we start building a new industrial area and create jobs and begin shaping the valley's economy. This is where Twin Pine Valley starts to work. Hello city builders, I'm Urban Odyssey, welcome back to Twin Pine Valley. After the rapid growth in the last episode, it's time to take the next step and finally bring jobs into the valley. But before we get into building the new industrial area, I want to quickly go over some suggestions and ideas from the previous episodes. So let's take a quick look at that first, and then we'll move on planning the industrial district. The first suggestion comes from Mr. Kirk 1. They pointed out this parking garage was leading into a pedestrian crossing, so I cleaned it up and the pedestrians will be fine now. Thanks for this hint. Another great recommendation comes also from Mr. Kirk number 1, placing down a commuter rail station to move the 9,000 people easier to their workplace. And they also stated later that this new neighborhood is quite close to the main station itself, which is quite true. So a commuter rail station wouldn't make much sense so close to the station, but we can place down a bus line, like a shuttle, like they mentioned, from the new neighborhood to the main station. I want to start the line all over the small supermarket here, right in front of it. I know it's close to an intersection, but I think it will be okay. The next one will be in front of the schools. I think we don't need bus bays here because this avenue or this 4-lane road isn't that busy. And the last stop will be over here in front of this building. A bus shelter is a bit big. We better place just the bus sign. And that note is a bit big, so let's just move it to make it a bit smaller. And create the actual bus line. And it's bus line 3, and we will put down 2 vehicles so far. I think it's enough, it's a short line. With the new bus line in place, let's move on to the next recommendation. It comes from Rosmilax. They recommend to name this new area or this new district Riverside Gardens. I think it's a nice name. So let's call it Riverside Gardens. And adapt all the names of the service buildings inside this district. The Netherland Elementary School always felt more like a kindergarten than a elementary school, so let's call it Riverside Gardens Kindergarten. Well, we could call it Riverside Kindergarten. Yeah, way better. If you want to name any district, asset or landmark in this build, just drop your ideas in the comments below. With the fixes and naming in place, let's move on to developing our industrial site. The area we are focusing on today lies right here, between the bypass road and the river, and between Riverside Gardens and the highway interchange. First, I want to clean up the power lines a bit to have a nicer connection to our new area. And temporarily connected to the city. We've neglected this area for quite a while and never really built a proper industrial zone, so let's clear everything out and start from scratch. With the area cleared out, let's start laying out the road network. Not a major road, I want to run an alley as a frontage road parallel to the train tracks. It also creates a bit of separation. And of course, we have to reconnect our intersection, or rather interchange, here from the bypass road to our new area. I think about 8% will be okay even for trucks. On the other side, I want to add another access point into the area. To cross the river, I'd like the bridge support to sit slightly off-center, not directly in the middle of the river, so let's prepare the terrain for that. The bridge itself will be a 6-lane road and it should stay almost perfectly level across the span. That looks pretty darn good. Oh, and it seems like we are already getting a bit of traffic over here. Didn't expect that so quickly. Let's tackle this right off the bat. At first, I was honestly thinking about just throwing in a large roundabout and calling it a day. But for an industrial area like this, I feel like we can push it a bit further. Something a bit more structured, maybe even slightly more complex, could work really well here. Before we lock anything in though, let's give ourselves a bit more breathing room. I'm trying to shape these intersections with the highway roads, so we've got a bit more flexibility here. And so trucks actually have enough space to maneuver comfortably. So on this side, I'll just curve the road gently and then carry it across the other side. It's already starting to get a bit more complex here, but I think we can push it further. Let's throw in a large sweeping curve and really make this intersection feel a bit more interesting and intentional. There we have it. A much more complex layout, and it definitely looks more interesting already. But now we need to make it actually work. Let's clean up some of those unnecessary turnings and tighten the flow so everything makes a bit more sense in practice. Cleaned up with dedicated turning lanes, proper traffic lights and wide enough turns for trucks, this should now handle a lot more traffic without falling apart. So with this in place, let's continue expanding the road layout. Okay, this is the final result. After cleaning things up and expanding the road network a bit, I noticed pretty quickly that the intersection just wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So I actually tested it using the traffic spawners in the dev menu. That's when a few issues become obvious, like this leg here and the other one over there. The nodes were just too close to the intersection, which caused traffic to block up even at green lights. So I reworked those sections, pulled things back slightly and gave the intersection more breathing room. I also wanted to improve the left turn flow. Instead of cramming everything into one setup, I split it into two 3-lane approaches with a dedicated right turn lane. That gives us a much cleaner distribution, 3 lanes turning left, 2 lanes going straight and 1 lane turning right. And after testing the updated setup again with the traffic spawners, it actually holds up really well, even under very heavy load. So yeah, this one's solid. Let's move on and start detailing it out. With all the extra markings, the intersection definitely looks a bit chaotic from a top-down view, but once you drop down to ground level or even just imagine it from a driver's perspective, it actually makes a lot more sense. The lane markings clearly guide you through each movement, so the intent is much more readable when you're actually in it. So yeah, visually busy from above, but functionally pretty clean where it matters. That's just wonderful. But let's take it one step further and enhance night visibility as well. Alright, with the main roads and the intersection in place, let's now start building out the collector and local road network. First though, I want to flatten this terrain a bit further out. That gives us more usable buildable space, but we still keep a healthy buffer from the river. In fact, I think we can even intentionally leave some of this as a kind of overflow area, an informal floodplain zone along the river, so we are not building right up against the edge everywhere. Okay, with this layout in place, we've got a really solid foundation for all the industry coming to Twin Pine Valley. Now moving on to the actual industry, I feel like this area really needs some kind of focal point, a signature building that anchors the whole district. And I think the athletic wear factory fits the role surprisingly well. It does have the Northern European vibe, and sure, it doesn't perfectly line up with the region in terms of raw materials. We are obviously not doing any cotton farming here, so everything has to be imported. But honestly, that's not really an issue. We are next to the cargo rail yard and we are planning a full cargo hub nearby anyway, so the logistics should work out just fine. Now, technically, we can't unlock the building without the cotton chain, but yeah, we'll just grab it through find it. There we go. And honestly, it fits into this spot perfectly. It really feels like it was meant to be here, or even have been here even before the larger roads. Yeah, this is actually a really solid start. We are somehow producing textiles out of livestock. Okay, honestly, I didn't expect the game to use anything other than cotton, but that actually works out even better. I guess you could justify it with things like feathers or sheep wool, so it kind of makes sense in its own way, I guess. And that means, at least for now, we don't even have to rely on imports here, which is a pretty nice bonus. But we are building the cargo hub anyway, so the other industries in this area will have a much easier time importing whatever they need. The large storage yard from the Bridges and Ports DLC fits in really nicely right here. But before we place it, let's give it its own dedicated access alley. Down by the river, we've got another great spot for a signature building. But before we get into that, let's clean things up a bit. This road here doesn't really fit the hierarchy anymore, so I'm going to downgrade it into an alley and then rework the zoning using the new vanilla zoning tools to better match the layout. Now, for the signature building in this area, I'm thinking the cereal mill from the supply chain creator pack. Visually, it fits in really well here and naturally draws attention without feeling out of place. We could even take that a step further and give it its own disused rail track, just to hint at how it used to be connected to the network before everything shifted more towards road transport. While those buildings were coming in, I moved on to the next section. Over here, I created a more cohesive structure by combining two of the same assets with a different level of that same asset in the middle. I also adjusted the colors so everything matches, which helps it read as one large continuous building instead of separate pieces. I did something similar over here as well. This is actually the same asset repeated at different levels. I just combined them in a way that makes it feel like a single larger structure. Again, matching the colors across all of them really helps sell that effect. And then this spot here is a bit special. This asset comes from PDX mods. It looks like an old factory or industrial building, but it's actually a post office placed inside a reused structure. You can find it on PDX mods. It's the old post office by Detective 93. Really nice asset, and it fits into this area perfectly. While building out these areas, I started to notice that this stretch of the arterial always felt a bit off. It's an 8-lane road with sidewalks that basically lead nowhere, which doesn't really make much sense here. So I think it will look and function a lot better if we swap these out for highway roads, at least until the next intersection. Yeah, that already feels way more cohesive. For the next factory, we are going to do a similar trick and splice a few assets together. I'll put up Find It, and over here I want to use a 5x5 building, the Industrial Warehouse number 1. If we place a couple of these side by side, it starts to read like one large factory complex, almost like there's some kind of assembly line running through it. At the end of the structure, I want to add a warehouse, the Industrial Storage Aquaculture building from the Bridges and Ports DLC, that can act as a sort of shipping or dispatch area for the factory. And on the other side, the whole complex definitely needs some kind of office space. I think the 6x4 US Southwest will fit in really nicely there and round out the setup. Perfect. The area is really starting to take shape now. Here I've just placed a few commercial assets and the sports bar, but let's shift our focus back to the other side of the area. I think we also need a larger office structure here to balance things out and give this site a bit more presence as well. I'm going to go with the 6x6 US Northeast office building here. It really feels like it's been part of the area for quite a while already. The only thing that doesn't really fit the Northern European style are these water tanks here, so let's remove them. On the other side of the 6-lane road, I think we should also introduce something with a bit more vertical presence. I'm going to go with the 5x5 commercial building, this time that slightly ugly EU vanilla one. It actually works surprisingly well here because it contrasts nicely with the more industrial structures around it, and it adds a bit of height variation to the streetscape. Let's shift our focus back to the athletic wear factory. I've changed my mind a bit here. I don't really want direct access or parking feeding straight off a major road. It just feels a bit too exposed for a building like this. So instead, let's set the whole complex back a bit from the main road and rework the frontage so access happens more indirectly. Alright, let's move further along and start building out the other industries next to it. Areas like this are also perfect for something like waste collection or recycling center. And we actually need it at this point. It looks like our garbage management can't really keep up with the demand anymore. So let's unlock recycling in the development tree. Right here, this spot works really well for it. The waste collection center from PDX mods fits in perfectly. The overall look of this area is already coming together really nicely. It's got a strong industrial feel to it. Before we jump into detailing, just a quick reminder, if you're enjoying the content, consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like. It really helps out a lot. While working on the detailing, I noticed something interesting. These commercial buildings that spawned in are actually hotels. So it looks like tourism is starting to work now, at least in this part of the city, and these popped up completely on their own. Let's take a quick look at the tourism tab. Yeah, it seems like the sports bar is actually a pretty strong attraction. So I think it makes sense to lean into that a bit. Maybe we take these assets, arrange them, and give them a small dedicated area so it feels a bit more intentional rather than random. Alright, so before we wrap things up, let's take a quick step back and look at what we've actually built here today. This whole industrial area has gone from a pretty neglected, undefined space to something that now feels structured, functional, and honestly quite believable as part of the city. The new cargo yard over here now acts as the main logistic hub for the area, providing storage and handling right here where it's needed. Right next to it, we've got the disused rail yard, which kind of tells the story of how this area evolved. With better road connections and the new cargo setup, rail just isn't relevant here anymore. The stone mine that used to sit here had to go. It turned out to be polluting both the ground and the groundwater, which was actually affecting our water supply. So for now, I have replaced it with a simple surface. We'll definitely need to come back to that in a future episode and figure out a better solution for the water supply. Underneath the highway, I made use of that otherwise wasted space by placing some storage and pile props, just to give it a bit more purpose and visual weight. Over on the other side, I expanded the waste collection center a bit. The city really needed the additional trucks, and with the storage asset in between, the whole block now reads as one cohesive facility. That said, long term we'll need a more scalable solution here as well, since the current system is already starting to struggle. Across the road, I swapped out the industrial buildings for offices after noticing complaints about noise pollution. It's much quieter now and it fits better with the surrounding development, I think. Our small hotel cluster also got a bit more structure and now feels like its own defined area. In my head, these are serving both tourists and business visitors coming into all the offices nearby, which ties everything together quite nicely. In terms of transport, I've added 2 bus routes to serve the district, one connecting to the main station and the other linking the industrial area with Riverside Gardens, so accessibility is starting to come together as well. And of course, I've done a bit of naming. The new district is now called Riverside Industries, which pairs nicely with Riverside Gardens. The main road between those two I called Riverside Boulevard, and especially it's nice because it runs all along the river. And the traffic circle from the previous episode has become Riverside Ring, so everything feels consistent and connected. And yeah, that pretty much wraps up this episode. With the new industrial area in place, Twin Pine Valley has finally started to create jobs. For the first time, the city is moving beyond mining and building the foundation of a real economy. But even with the new factories moving in, it's still not enough. Unemployment remains high, and despite everything we've built, demand is still lower than expected. The city now has the infrastructure, it has the connections, and it has the workforce. But something in the system still doesn't add up. So the question is, what is holding Twin Pine Valley back? And more importantly, how do we turn this into a functioning economy instead of just growth on paper? Thanks for watching Twin Pine Valley. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to leave a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to see more of Twin Pine Valley, click on the videos on screen. If you'd like to follow the next steps of the city, consider subscribing. See you in the next one.